right, Mother, are you ready?
A tablespoon of apple cider vinegar every day in 1 cup of water. People lost up to 15 pounds in a month.
Yeah, I've heard that. I was watching. The Paul Blart Mall Cop guy. Do you remember
Yeah,
remember those movies?
Kevin
That
James,
guy.
he lost a lot of weight.
Yeah, you know how he does it. He was on Rogan the other day. He was talking about how basically what he
Ozempic.
does. No, he does the water diets where he'll just go 40 days without food, just water, and like throw salt in there for the electrolytes. I was like,
Yeah,
man, the willpower you have to do that.
yeah.
Like
That's not
I've done the 3 day water diets where I mean you
yeah,
remember those, and
yes.
let me tell you, after the third day, like
Yeah,
what's
your
weird about the
headache.
water diet? No, not even that. Third day you're actually fine. The first day is the worst. The second day is pretty bad. When like you're like by the end of the second day you're like, oh, I can go on for forever. Like this is pretty easy. And then by the third day you're like, oh, I can do this forever. But
No.
every little movement hurts because your body's not recovering, right? You don't realize how much you're using your muscles throughout the day. So once you like, I just remember it, on the third day when I was doing the stairs at home, like I could feel it in my knees and my joints. Like I was like, oh man, like I'm not healing here because I was only doing water.
Well, there's a reason why your body needs water. After 7 days, you're dead. So he
Yeah,
can't do 40 days straight. He's gotta do something. Well, you said he drinks water for 40 days, but, that's not healthy. You can't do
wait,
that.
you said that wrong. You can go. He only drinks water.
Yeah, he only
Yeah,
drinks
yeah,
water,
yeah.
but your body needs water for whatever, but it's just not enough. Your body needs more
Yeah.
than that, and that's not healthy, you know? What is he, Jesus in the desert? Even Jesus ate
Yeah,
bugs, come on,
he threw.
you know?
Well, you could throw salt in that makes you last longer because the electrolytes and salt. Like you could throw in packets that aren't any calories that
Yeah,
work
I mean,
really
I
well.
was doing the tablespoon of apple cider vinegar just because it's supposed to be good for your kidneys, and we have issues with that, but the more I'm reading about it, that consistently people that did it
We do.
with placebo group, they lost a lot of weight just from that. So, but it's all supposed to be very healthy. I do it straight, and then I have coffee after, but they're saying it's better to do it
Whoa,
with
Mom,
water.
you're so hardcore. You could do tablespoons of apple cider vinegar. Whoa,
Hardcore vinegar, man.
I'd give it
It's
a
like my
shot.
sin. It's my
Yeah,
sin.
I
It's
just
my
been I've just been lowering the calories, but
well, that too, but I'm saying it's sometimes you need that little jump start, but it is good for your kidneys and stuff. There's a lot of other benefits, but
yeah, I'll give it a
anyway.
shot next time I'm at the food store. I'll grab some apple cider vinegar
Yeah,
and
get the
just
good quality. Don't get the no name brand. They're a little thinner. They're not as
you
good.
said the tablespoon.
Tablespoon. A tablespoon, you can mix it in a cup of water and drink it
Tablespoon
that
you
way.
can. Oh, so you just need it in you. You don't have to straight shoot it.
No, I mean, I've straight but they say that it's very acidic that way, so you should
Cut it
dissolve
with
it
one.
in water. Yeah, I mean, I don't know. You could try it without it, but if you start to get if stomach starts to bother you, whatever. I mean, I've never done it consistently enough to say, "Oh, this is bothering my stomach." But if I have to, and I'm trying to figure out the timing. Is it better in the morning or better at night? I was taking it with my coffee at night. They kept saying they gave it in the morning only because they were doing a study group and that was the best time to do it. So I don't know if there's any benefit time of day. But in general, it's very good for other stuff too.
Huh.
Wow, you are really pale.
Thank you.
Get
That could be the
outside. Would
lights.
you please?
That could be
Go
the
outside,
lights.
please.
But
You're living in North Carolina. You should have a healthy glow at
I
least.
thanks, Mom.
Yeah, that
uh
you could put in your podcast.
yeah, I'm trying to again, as I said, it's been pretty busy besides the weather hasn't been that nice. It's been hot, but it's been rainy. So,
Oh,
it's kind of humid.
it's gonna
But
get colder here.
is it?
Yes, supposed to start dropping down in the north. Your area too. It's start going down into like the 60s again. Um, yeah. So I've been watching it for Grandma and trying to. 'Cause she thinks it's like power, "Oh, it's summertime, springtime's here." I'm like, "Well, it's fine, mom, but it's getting colder."
How's the Bo's 10th birthday? Bo turned 10.
Well, he does have the ear infection, so it was a little bit of a bummer, but he's getting better. I
Oh,
think
good.
he's not in a lot of pain, he's a little blah. We have to soak speaking of salt, she recommended soaking his feet 2 to 3 times a week in, Epsom salt because salt kills all bacteria.
Yeah.
Nothing can live in salt and fungus. So she said, try and do that. Get the fungus out of his nails so he's not putting that in his ears. I'll try anything at this point. And he's going to a dermatologist on April 18th. He has an appointment.
Our
Apologist.
dog is so high maintenance. But
Well, to figure out finally what is that they think he's allergic to. Because I have introduced a new wash. I got rid of that. We've been giving him more human food, which maybe there's something he's allergic to. He's been licking a lot, so now it's hell here because I have to rinse the plates before I put them in the dishwasher. He does not like that. But
Oh.
yeah, so
Poor pups. But and then
yeah.
what's the plan for St. Patrick's Day?
Well, we had, you know, who has the best corned beef and cabbage in New Jersey?
Probably Stex.
The Rail.
Really?
Yeah, Grandma and I drove there last night. Picked up 2 corned beef and cabbages and 1 Southwest egg roll. I have to say it was very good. Now, Susan said she's having that for you tonight.
Yeah, I called her
Okay.
before because we're heading over there.
The corned beef there was so tender. It was like falling. You could slice it with a fork. It
Really?
was falling off. Yeah, which was delicious. The cabbage, which cabbage is, it's cabbage. You know, there's only so much you could do with it. People season it. Susan will probably make it look good. They just boil it, the cabbage, and salt it. So it is what it is. But their potatoes will cook well. Their carrots will cook well. You know, there's not a lot of sauce with corned beef and cabbage. But Grandma loved it. Said it was delicious. I
Really?
enjoyed mine. I'm good for it once a year, Chris, at St. Patrick's Day.
Yeah, I don't know if I can tell you what the taste of, like, I don't think I've had it enough to tell you if I like it or not. So we're gonna find out tonight.
Well, I told Sue you'd probably like the corned beef because you like
Rubens, right? Yeah.
So, especially if it's cooked really well, which Susan probably do a good job. The cabbage, I said, don't bother getting extra for Chris because that's a take it or leave it thing. I don't know if you're dying
Yeah.
for the cabbage. And then the fixins are what it is. So, Mike, Bo had a steak. So I made a steak before I went to go pick the food up at the Rail, and Dad shared the steak. So Bo had that for his birthday.
Oh.
Stuff with that. But I tell you, it's a waste. I should tell Susan later. It's a waste of money taking Grandma out to a restaurant. We walked into the Rail. Now it was really busy. It was St. Patrick's Day, but it was early. It was 5:30, whatever. She goes, "Oh, I could never eat in there. It's so loud. Every restaurant's too loud for
Oh no!
Grandma."
Wait, yesterday was Saturday, right? So.
That's a Saturday
Uh,
night. It was still early,
Yeah.
but
Huh.
and the eve of St. Patrick's Day. So anyhow, I'm like, Mom, I'm never taking you out to dinner because why? You're
Right.
just gonna complain the whole time. It's a waste of money to pay on top of that. So it worked out fine. We drove over there. Oh, this is so long a ride, Irene. Yes, Mom. Yes, Mom. Rail's too
Yeah, I
far.
mean it is kind of far in the sense of you have to go all the way down to the quick check, take the right.
Yeah.
It's like a good 20 minutes.
Yeah, it's a
Maybe.
haul. I tell you guys all that all the time. I got to go all the way over to Ishkapuck to get this food. But on top of it, I would never waste the money of staying with Grandma because why? She's just, well, a restaurant has to be perfectly silent. I'm like, good luck with that, Mom. It's not
She's
gonna
used to
happen.
the Heidelberg or whatever,
Yeah,
where
no,
there's
Jack.
5
She said,
people.
Jack's not that noisy.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, this is an aside. Like, I don't think I'm taking you out anymore, Mom. It's not worth it. Which we
Yeah.
have. We went to the diner one day, the spinning wheel out in Huntington. That's it. It's the only place we've gone to. The rest has been takeout.
I don't know if I've been to the spinning wheel. I've never even heard of that.
Yeah, it's down heading out towards when you head towards Clinton on 22.
We're giving these people a lot of publicity.
I know, right?
The Rail, I mean, at the Rail, I'm fine with giving publicity. We worked there. That used to be our, I mean, Kenny and I both worked there. So that was our
Yeah.
neighbor's restaurant that we worked at. So,
I don't think I told Grandma that because then she'd be like, feel guilty that she.
yeah. I'll remind her.
no.
I'll be like, how dare you? Mom, can you lower your camera a little bit? Because we have.
I could sit up too.
Yeah.
I'm slouched.
It's fine. If you want to slouch, that's fine. It's just like I'm like looking at the ceiling. But
Not good for me.
yeah. All right. You ready to start this? We got a lot to talk about. Well, you know
Yes.
what? It's not that we have a lot to talk about. We have one major topic to talk about, but it's probably going to be a long topic of conversation. The
This
big.
is a warning note. I have to get up in 17 minutes and 50 seconds to make sure Grandma takes the lemon bundt cake out of the oven.
Okay, that's fine.
I put her watch on too. She won't know what it is. It's buzzing on her wrist. So,
That's so you put the timer on her wrist to check it?
well, she couldn't find. She drove today to the food store just to get a paper. So she drove from our house to King's. I said, "Would I like to drive?" Yeah. She's in a mood.
Using what car?
Her car. Dad changed her oil today. So,
Oh, I didn't realize her car was down.
yes, I brought it down last time when Susan drove her down from Lake George when she stayed at my house.
Gotcha.
So she drove her down in the Forester. Anyhow, long story short, oh, you moved me. She drove. It was fine, but we got to King's and you should have seen the parking job. Like, Ma, you got to fix this. She was
Is that
so
bad?
Yes, the car was still running when she got out of it, but she did fine. You know, she hasn't driven in a while. But then we come out of King's after just picking up the paper, and she goes, "You drive. I don't want to drive anymore." Like, okay. So
Really?
that was the highlight of her day. I was going to take her on a road trip tomorrow to that Osprey bar in Manasquan that she always talks about. Remember that? Okay.
Man, our
She
viewers are probably so confused for like the
so,
last 10 minutes we've been talking about food and grandma.
well, if you want to edit out, you
Oh,
can.
God.
But she always says, "Oh, the Manasquan. My girlfriends and I went to the Osprey bar. I wonder if it's still there." She's been saying this to me for I don't know how long. Believe it or not, that bar's been there 78 years.
Wow,
Okay.
really?
Right. It's Manasquan, so it's right near Point Pleasant where we used to go when you guys were little. So the other day, Mom was like, "Oh, I haven't seen the beach in years." I go, "You were a half hour from the beach down in North Carolina." Never went, supposedly. Okay.
Oh, this
So
place.
yeah, when she was down there, she says, "I haven't been to the beach in years." I said, "Why didn't you go when you're in North Carolina?" It was too cold. Whatever.
That's a
So
bar?
well, the Osprey is an old bar. I think it's still in existence. So
Yeah,
when
I think
Kenny was
is this
in,
it? So
that's
this
it.
is it? Okay, gotcha.
I don't plan to go into the bar, but I'll take her down there and take a picture of it. So I said to her today, I'm gonna take. She's in a mood today. I said we're gonna go on a mystery ride tomorrow. I don't want to go. I said okay. Like okay, fine. Where are you taking me? Are you taking me to Queensbury? I go no. Yeah, exactly what this guy's doing. I'm gonna do with Grandma. Have her stand in front, take the freaking picture, and send it to Kenny because Kenny's heard about that damn Osprey bar every time he's gone to Matt's house. We
Really?
used to go to a bar in Manasquan called the Osprey, me and the girls. So I was going to take her on a little trip tomorrow. It's about an hour's ride. And she could see the beach. I'll take her to the Osprey, buy her lunch, back in the car, we go home. She's already said no.
How
I'm
long's
like,
that
okay,
drive? Hour and a
an
half?
hour. No, an hour.
That's
No
not bad.
traffic.
That's
It's
not
a Monday.
terrible. All
No, it's
right,
not
Mom.
terrible at all.
The real
And
question is the US banning TikTok? This has been pretty much the biggest story all week.
yeah,
I don't even know where to start with this, but I, as someone who's okay, well, let me give you my thoughts real fast because I think you're gonna have the bigger breakdown. So, as someone who's posted a TikTok for almost 4 years now,
yeah,
yeah, 4 years, maybe even longer, 5 years. YouTube, all the stuff, it's part of my social media ecosystem, so I kind of have to. I think
yeah.
it's a little how do I put so the biggest thing right now is a lot of TikTokers, ones that are making good money on TikTok, are obviously upset about it. But I
Right,
feel like no one's really talked about the real issue here, which is that it's not that they're necessarily banning TikTok. They actually have nothing really against TikTok. They just want it not to be owned by ByteDance. So if ByteDance still owns it, which is a Chinese company, excuse me,
yeah.
then it's going to get banned. But like, I feel like a lot of TikTokers are upset about government banning TikTok, where the real issue is why are you guys not talking about TikTok being like? I feel like the users like me and a bunch of other creators should be
Hmm.
complaining or saying to TikTok, "Hey, yes, just please sell it." Like they should be. Someone in the U.S. is going to pick it up, and they're not going to make any changes to it. We just don't want ByteDance owning it. Does that make
Right.
sense? So I think that the a lot of the news outlets are calling this the TikTok ban, when in reality it's really the ByteDance ban. Does that make
Right.
sense? Yeah.
Yeah.
So I think if I was I mean, I'm sure we all know the guy who is the CEO of TikTok, who's like, Senator, I'm from Singapore. That's the whole
Yeah.
outlet thing,
Yeah.
the meme, if you will. I think if that, like, the fact that he doesn't want to sell it and separate from ByteDance kind of goes to show that he's not in it for the creators. He's in it for, I guess, China, if you will. Like, there's clearly some sort of, he's not saying it, but there's clearly some some sort of connection between him and ByteDance that we
Yeah.
can't figure out for some reason.
Yeah.
So again, I'm actually for the ByteDance ban. I don't know if I'm necessarily pro TikTok ban.
Yeah, so we're free speech people, obviously,
Yep.
myself included. But I do feel we need to start cracking down on foreign adversaries coming in and investing in our companies, our lands, and whatnot. We can't be naive about this, okay? So TikTok is an example because it is so large, but I think this is This is legislation, a bill that is long overdue, and we're still in uncharted waters with social media and these type of platforms. We have to have at least minimums in terms of what we're going to do. And
Right.
then there's another story about the gaming, which we'll talk about, which is sort of the other side of the coin, where you get too far involved in what people are doing on social
Right.
media,
We'll get
where
to
it's
that later.
right. It's
Yeah.
a question of First Amendment. So I think the TikTok bill, or whatever they're calling it, is an example. And unfortunately, it's a big one. Not unfortunately, but they're calling it TikTok, but it's basically finally doing legislation to say, hey, you cannot use, um, you cannot have foreign adversaries investing in a major media outlet that has, and then lying about what they do with the
That's the big
data.
one. Yeah. So
Okay.
as you saw, and you sent me, I'll pull up the article real fast. It's actually a Twitter um, video of why this bill's being passed, and he brings up all the evidence about how, if you go in deeper, like find the full video of how they really sort of, I don't want to say manipulated the truth, but the way they got away with a lot of the lying, in the sense of, oh, we weren't tracking your data. Then we find out 100% you're tracking our data. Then, oh, we
Right.
have no ties to China and whatever. Well, that's not true because we have evidence of that. Then they said, okay,
Right.
we messed up. We're going to pull back a little bit. TikTok
Right.
said we're going to pull back a little bit. And then all of a sudden, nothing changed. And then we found out. So that's 3 strikes. So
Right.
even though I don't necessarily agree with the TikTok ban, as I said,
Yeah.
there's still enough things that they have done wrong or lied to the U.S. government about, or
Yeah.
and the people about, that definitely causes us to want to put this bill forward.
Right, and the 5 conditions, you cannot use, this against an individual, right? It's not something to be used against an individual. It must be, controlled. They have to control it if it's a foreign adversary, right? You can't just have anybody coming
Right.
in. It has to be separate from national security. There are additional things you have to divest. So it's not really TikTok. It's not a TikTok ban. It's just that TikTok happens to be right now the example of ByteDance as a primary owner. TikTok is not going to go away. There are actually people talking about buying it right now
Yeah, which is what
that
we
are
expect.
American companies, American hedge funds, American investors. And if they're not, say it's another American investor, but they're hiding a foreign adversary. You know, for a time there, if you said Russia, everybody went crazy if Russia was on social media. Well, why is it okay to go after Russian influence, but not Chinese influence?
Right.
And when you strip it back, and on top of it, like you said, they lied. No U.S. data is
3
going to
times.
China. They admitted that it was a lie. They said, you know, so that's really the point. Companies have to start doing social media platforms. We have to start watching what they're doing when it's an outside influencer coming
Right.
in. You know, if a citizen buys it or an American company buys it and they stifle free speech, that's an issue, right? If they then take the data and sell it to foreign adversaries, I got a problem with that.
Yeah. But now let me play devil's advocate, right? What do you think TikTok's doing that Facebook, Instagram, and potentially Twitter? What I know that Facebook has a lot of Chinese influencers, in the sense of people that own it. Facebook is owned by China. Like, so
But
why?
that's why I'm saying this is not a TikTok. They're calling it a TikTok bill because since 2019, many people have been going out after it, including Chuck Schumer, Nancy Pelosi. They've all been calling for an end to using TikTok on our, government phones because they have control over that. They don't want it on there because of the fact that the data is what's being transferred.
Right.
Now, for those who use TikTok, a lot of you would say, well, this is garbage data anyhow. Who cares if they know my address, my this, they that? Maybe that's true. Maybe there's a reason, but I don't want to know why. They just shouldn't have it.
Yeah.
That's my take on it.
But would you say you feel the same way with Facebook, Twitter,
Yeah,
Instagram?
and that's why I
Yeah.
think these type of these bills are important. These are uncharted area with social media, and we've learned, the past few years they've been getting away with a lot of crap. And maybe as citizens, we should get to decide should they continue with that crap, or maybe we have to start looking behind and see what's going on. I think this is a step in the right direction. It gives Facebook, Twitter, etc., all these others notice that if you have major investors who are foreign adversaries, whether it's China or somebody else, we want to know what they're doing, especially if they're lying about what they do with the data.
Right. But so what about non-social media companies, in the sense of, right, the NBA is heavily influenced by China. I think they're still the biggest investor. So when it comes to like, at what point, Mom, do you think that we kind of, I don't want to say need the money, but like, are you okay with outside investors still being invested but not having power? Like there should be a reason, because I'm sure we're invested in stuff in China as a country that we don't know about or talk about. So when it comes to something
Well,
like,
China is much stricter with what they will allow. And if you talk to somebody who does business, I know people who have done business in China through their company. So not they personally, but their company. And as employees, they were sent over there. You're told automatically, know that once you're on a phone, they're listening to every
right,
conversation.
it's
You can
very
hear the
different.
ticking, ticking, ticking on your phone. It's a different world over there. They control it. They know full well our weaknesses and that we are an open society. We allow, allow, allow. That's great. But now we have to start pulling back. And I do agree that even in corporations, now people are questioning land grabs.
Yeah.
Why does China own so much of our farmland?
Because we keep freaking selling it.
Right. Or we're making it very difficult from a regulatory perspective for smaller farmers to maintain that business. Do you want your food supply controlled by a foreign adversary, whether it's Russia, China,
Yeah,
Iran,
whoever.
whatever? Right. And we are an open country. We do allow that. We don't want to hinder it. But now we're in a position where we have to start watching what's going on because our foreign adversaries are taking advantage of our
Yeah.
open policies.
Yeah. And I think to your point, I don't think people understand the grasp of, or can't grasp the amount of influence China has in pretty much everything. Like just some of the companies that we've worked with, as you know, I mean, a lot of them have Chinese influence, not to the level of like a ByteDance or anything, but I mean,
Right.
these guys invest in everything. So,
Well, our
yeah.
heads are exploding as we learn how much they're in our universities. All the funding that they're getting from
Yeah.
us are tax dollars. And what we've known has been a problem for way before even President Trump, the 45th, and the current president, they take our data and literally steal it.
Yeah.
All the patent information, all our discoveries. And they then produce things and use it against us. I mean, how stupid do we want to continue to be?
Yeah, it's funny though because like I just think of all like when I think of my TikTok feed and all that quote unquote data they're getting, I feel
Yeah,
sorry for the guy that has to siphon that shit out over there in China.
right.
Because think about it, they probably take millions and millions of I guess units of data if you would call it that, and maybe you'll get one that might be useful. You know, like
I've
that's what.
never really looked into what do they think they're doing with this data, other than manipulate. I mean,
Right.
to their advantage, they could, in essence, manipulate what people see on, say, an election year, or say we were at war with these countries. What do you do then? They now have access to our social media that a good portion, it's like 54 million people, was it monthly, annual, are on these sites monthly.
Yeah.
And that's a lot of influence, right? A
Yeah.
lot of influence, even in subtle ways.
As I said, so this kind of takes us to a different topic, related topic, but like for me personally, to answer your question of like what kind of data they're taking, like I don't feel like I'm giving them any real data except for like maybe phone IPs and maybe some internet IPs. Like that's the only thing I can imagine them taking. To your point, I think it's them pushing certain things on us. But let me tell you, my algorithm, there's not much you could push on me because it's all gaming. Like there's a limit to what someone my age can. Well, let me put it this way: if you're someone that can navigate the world in a sense of, I know that this is shit content, I know this is good content, and I know this is opinion. If you can navigate that, that's fine. If there's a real problem, it's not going to be in my age or older. It's going to be the younger kids, the ones that are influenced very easily. And that's where
Hmm.
I can see them pushing information that should not be pushed. So I'm sure if you have I forget if, I'm sure it makes you sign up and like give your age when
Hmm.
you make a TikTok. It's been so long since I've done it. But like if I'm China, if I see a 12-year-old signing up, I'm going to push them as much information that I want to influence them. Does that make
Right.
sense?
Well, I don't know if it's also in the aggregate too. So even though they might not specifically be looking at you, they may be looking at your category and seeing what age group you target, what
Exactly.
gender you target, what kind of information, if you have sponsors,
Right.
they might be looking in the aggregate of your type of industry and how can we infiltrate that with whatever message we want through algorithms or whatever.
Right.
They might be looking at just a particular group of people in a category that watch you and watch similar sites or
Yeah.
subscribe and doing it that way. That's what I'm saying. I don't know what the data is. I don't know what they want to do with that data. We do know they try and influence younger people, especially in an election
Right.
year. Another reason why you scratch your heads when people say, "Oh, we have to have 16-year-olds vote." How convenient,
Yeah,
right?
that's a wild one.
Yeah,
Um,
so they pushed for that for a long time. Well, Chinese study us. They study our culture, our history. They know more about us than we know about them.
yeah.
And they know all the intricacies and they have time on their hands. They can chip away at a wall for 30 years until they get where they want to be. That's why things that look innocuous to us now, I'm always suspicious of them. I don't know what they're doing with the data, but they're getting it for a reason. That's all you have to know.
Well,
And they lied about it for a
yeah,
reason.
one of the big talking points is like how different the Chinese version of TikTok is compared to ours. That's
Yeah.
kind of one of the big arguments where they can only have certain screen times. I think Ted Cruz actually really, I don't know if schooled is the right word, but he asked some, he's the only senator that really asked good questions to the CEO of TikTok. Can't
Yeah.
think of his name, but he brought up a good point. Why is ours so different? Is that a
Yaz,
government
I
thing?
think his name is. Yaz.
Uh,
The guy's name is Yaz, I think, the main guy,
let me see.
big investor in it. Reason why Rand Paul came out was anti-banning TikTok, and they all went nuts because, oh, he gets tens of millions of dollars from him.
Suzy Shu. Sao Zi Shu. I think I pronounced that
Yeah,
right.
he's the CEO, but I think the biggest investor is Yaz, Y-A-Z.
So the one thing that TikTok has, I think that changed the game a little bit, and it's one of those features that I feel like no one really uses here in America, is there's actually a category for STEM, which is I forget what STEM stands for, but it's like science. It's all the educational stuff essentially.
Yeah.
Oh, here's
Science, technology, something in math. What's the E?
uh,
Science, technology,
science,
engineering?
engineering, and mathematics. Yep, good.
Yeah.
Wow, nailed it. So that's a specific category on TikTok. If I pull up my TikTok right now, there's actually, so this is the problem though, and I don't think you guys can see this, but see, it gives me all like the For You page. I forget what it is. It's For You, the shop following, and then all the way to the left is STEM. They just
Okay.
added that. TikTok's had that for, like, TikTok China has had that basically since the beginning. So
Yeah.
it's a little bit more of a, whoever owns TikTok, whether it be ByteDance or whoever, they've done a really good job at just doing enough so that they have an argument. Does that make
Right.
sense? So
Yeah.
I think that I don't know if TikTok's going to end up getting banned. I don't think it will, but I do think that ByteDance is going to have to sell it to some entity. I don't know if it's going to be a group of people, but I guarantee you they're still going to have some kind of hand in it. Realistically, I think the deal's going to be ByteDance is still going to be a majority holder, but they're going to add more investors. That'll probably be the
Well, we
deal in
have
the end.
already Steve Mnuchin has come out and said that he's interested in buying it. Steve Mnuchin was the Treasury Secretary under Donald Trump, very wealthy man before he even went into office. So I'm sure he has some people that are involved that'll make a bid for it. Again, I don't, maybe they're worse, who knows? But at least it's American entity and you fall under American laws, American rules, and you know they can somewhat be held accountable without having to do this literal dance all the time.
Yeah,
Um,
I wonder what they're going to sell it for, because I know TikTok's a multi-billion-dollar company, but I don't think it, like, I wonder if it's worth more than Twitter. Like, I wonder if Elon would pick that up, you know?
I haven't heard anything. I don't, nothing's been published
Yeah.
about that. Um, Usually, when you're under litigation, sometimes you can get things at a discount.
Yeah. Yeah.
Just
You know that.
your threat is no company at all versus, and there's incentive because there is a reality that so many people do rely on TikTok, influencers,
Yeah.
and they make money from it. And nobody wants to see that in this economy, certainly not this administration. In election, you want to see 300,000 people, literally lose a source of income. So there's an incentive for somebody, and I'm sure the federal government will encourage somebody if this bill passes, and it has a good chance. They said it might die in the Senate, but I'll tell you, more and more senators with these, Rand Paul took a lot of heat. Like I said, he's always been a free speech libertarian, so it's a little disingenuous to say, well, of course he's saying that because his number one sponsor and funder is this Yaz guy who
Right.
is involved in TikTok. I don't know if that's true, but it's certainly an incentive to make sure it doesn't go through or doesn't look good. So it's possible that the Senate will also, change their tune and say, yeah, you have to divest. You can't have a
Yeah.
foreign influence in it.
And
So
even Biden said he's going to sign the. Well, if it comes to his desk, he's going to sign it, and I'm okay with that. Like, I'm fine with him. If they ban TikTok, I'm not gonna. I guess it's kind of. I would say, I guess, insensitive for me to say it, but I don't make a living off TikTok. Obviously, I'm not a big TikToker or anything. So for me, the ban makes sense, and I'm fine with it. It really won't change my life, but I do understand that there are 300,000 people that have jobs and have a creative outlet, if you will,
yeah,
and get paid to do that.
yeah.
But I don't know how much these TikTokers make. To my understanding, it's not that much. But I do think that if you are on TikTok and you don't want to lose your job, don't be mad at government. Be mad at ByteDance and TikTok for not caring about you enough to just do the deal, right? Just because it's not, if we separate ByteDance from TikTok, you're fine. You're good. It's really not going to affect you. But if you yell at government for banning it when the issue's not really government, it's ByteDance,
Right.
that's on you, right? You can cry and
And
complain about it all you want, but
it's a misnomer to say it's a ban on TikTok. It's
yeah,
only a ban on a social media platform if they don't divest of a foreign adversary.
right.
So TikTok can keep going, and that is why you have individuals saying, "Well, it's a good platform. It's good. It's marketable. It's got 54.4 million viewers or subscribers, whatever, per month, under the age of 24 and under. Okay, in the U.S. That's a huge market.
Oh, hold
So
on. That's just in 24 and under?
yes, number of
Wow.
U.S. adults 24 and under is 54.4 million per month.
So that tells me that, I mean, that's got to be less than 50% per month. Like, think of how many other age groups are on TikTok. There's a lot. So I can't
There are,
imagine.
but
Yeah.
yeah, there are. But then again, it's probably not as popular, especially for influencers and whatnot, or people who actually use the platform beyond viewing it.
Yeah.
Probably dies off as it gets older. It's probably my group definitely is not a
Oh,
large
I
group.
think you'd be surprised.
Oh, I know, but certainly I don't. I would be surprised if 54 million. I mean, that's a lot of people. So, but and segueing into that other article, we could do that in a minute. It's just more a misnomer to say that they're banning TikTok. They're really not banning it. I would not be a proponent of banning anything, social media wise. But I do agree. You can't have foreigners coming in here, owning it, lying about what they do with the data on several occasions, and then acting like, how dare you go after free
Wow.
speech? You're taking our data and not telling people. And you're going to come in and claim that, we're against free speech.
So,
I just find that odd.
Mom, this is where, again, this is kind of the lack of us knowing, but so that 54 million is almost a third, a little over a third of the user base. So think
Okay.
about that. That means that there's more people over 24 on TikTok.
Is that individuals
Yeah,
or could it be other
150
entities
million.
like companies and whatnot? Could that be
150
companies?
U.S. market monthly users have now passed nearly half America's population. I mean, yeah, you can have. I don't know. That's a good question, but also I would think that a huge number is also that 25 to 35 range. I bet you that's an astronomical number. I would think
Maybe
that that's
not.
pretty up there.
Yeah, that wouldn't surprise me if you see the breakdown.
Yeah. So
Oh,
I think the influence that TikTok has, I think, is kind of like, I don't know what you do if you do end up banning TikTok. Like, because I don't think Instagram and Facebook are much better. I think,
no, and I think that's why this ruling is important because now people can go after all these other entities with foreign influence.
yeah, I mean, I think the best situation is they just divest and basically say we're still going to own 49% or whatever it is, probably do a JV deal. But I don't know how much of a difference that makes because they're still going to own it. If you need them to completely divest, then you have an issue. Now you know what the real kick in the face would be for that the Singapore guy who's like, oh, I have no connections to China. If ByteDance sells and he steps down as CEO, if he does that, that's how you know that he was in on it, right? That's why he goes, oh, I guess there's no point in me being here anymore because now I'm not a surrogate, right? So that'll be interesting.
Or they demote him because he wasn't able to influence them to keep it as is.
Yeah, but he can't control a demotion. He can kind of control stepping down, right?
Oh yeah, no, I agree.
So
but,
I think that'll be interesting. So what do you think, Mom? Do you think that this ends up getting passed all the way through? Like, do you think TikTok will just divest, or do you think China's gonna? Here's what I think's gonna happen. You ready? This is what. Right, this is like the third option. They're gonna make a bunch of shell companies, ByteDance, and then they're just gonna sell it to those shell companies so that they still have a huge percentage, and then I bet you that's what they end up doing. Because I bet you after this whole thing passes, you're going to see all the investors and like still over 50% is going to be Chinese-owned companies. Just different names.
But I don't know that that's allowed under the bill. I don't know if you could get away with that because now they're going to be watched. And that's why I say that I think it might actually be happening only because there are well-known individuals coming out and saying, I'm putting together a deal to try and buy it. So it might be an advantage to get out.
Yeah, and I wonder. I mean, still, that's a lot of power to fall into the wrong hands either way. Even if it's an American, I don't know what the percentages are going to be of who owns what, because someone has to overall own a good majority of it.
But remember, we have laws in this country, antitrust laws. We have all sorts of security. There are rules and regulations of what you can and cannot do in this country. And it's regulated, so it's not as though, well, an American comes in, they can do whatever they want. That's not true either. Although, as we know, these social media platforms do get away with a lot, and that has never been addressed. That what is it, the 203 or the whatever it is, that FCC ruling that, we go back and forth. Are they publishers or is it a free speech platform? And that's never officially been ironed out. I think this is
a gray line.
TikTok. I think TikTok is a good opportunity to say, let's start with the basics. Let's get the foreign influence out.
Yeah, I mean, TikTok's probably the easiest to go after, right? Because we know who owns it. It's basically one entity that owns it. And they've already had the 3 strikes against them. There's no argument to that anymore. Whereas if you were to go to Facebook or Twitter or Instagram, which is owned by Facebook, even though China owns it, there's really no solid proof. We can take Zuckerberg to court as many times as we want. There's still no solid evidence that, on paper, I should say, that China is controlling Facebook. We all know it, but I think it's going to be a lot harder to prove, unlike TikTok.
Well, you have to keep in context too. There's a Supreme Court ruling that's pending that goes back to the misinformation and the government, U.S. government, working with social media platforms to censor. And so far, it's working with the Supreme Court, but the federal court recently said, the government agencies are no longer allowed to talk to social media. They cannot influence it. Okay.
Right.
So now we have a real problem when
right.
But a communist country is the number one owner of this particular social media platform. We may have these rules and regs and say, the U.S. government can't do it. We don't have regulations saying, well, guess what? China can't do it. And we don't know what misinformation they decided they didn't want people hearing. I don't know if anybody did a dive on TikTok. Maybe they did. But I'm sure there was censoring going on. And we now have, in light of what we've gone through the last few years, many citizens in this country are not comfortable with any censorship whatsoever in social media. Okay.
Yeah.
We've gone so far as to say our federal government has said our own government is not allowed to talk to these agencies to do any sorts of censoring of information whatsoever. It's going through the Supreme Court. And now, so now what do I do as a Chinese company? They're supposed to fall under our rules and regs. Meanwhile, they're sending their data back to China, and in light of our recent negative experience as a nation with censorship. And we're giving our information to a foreign adversary who's lying and saying for years now, no, we don't do that. We don't do that. Yeah. And we keep catching them in this lie and nothing's being done.
Yeah. That's why it's very hard for me to kind of, again, as a content creator for a decade now, it's hard for me to not feel for the people who are about to lose their jobs. As I said, Well, okay. There's two sides to this. I feel bad in the sense of it sucks. I'm gonna lose. Some of my favorite creators are on TikTok. I'm gonna lose seeing those people. Fortunately, there's other outlets. You just have to rebuild your. I mean, it's just like when Vine died. Do you remember Vine, the 7 second?
Yeah, but
Yeah,
if TikTok gets bought out or the ByteDance gets bought
yeah.
out, there's nothing
I,
that's going to
I'm
stop
I'm
TikTok.
assuming that ByteDance doesn't sell in the end. I think they won't. They're gonna do everything in their power not to. I think that although I want it to stay, I don't know. You're right. It might be one of those too big to fail sort of things in the sense of someone will buy it. So maybe I'm talking a little out of turn, but I'm just thinking of like, let's say it did die tomorrow.
Hmm.
I think of Vine, which I don't know if you remember Vine, but Vine was when I was in like grade school to high school.
Yep.
All those people moved their followings over to a new website. Obviously, it doesn't work every time, and there's still a gamble. But
Right.
I think that, man, I don't really know how to put it to words. Like I understand what it would be like if everything fell apart. I mean, some of them that's their livelihoods, but
Yeah.
also like you didn't have a plan B. You know what I mean?
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
So, and I understand that there are people who can't afford to go to college or certain things, but then I would say like, again, this might sound insensitive, but that's kind of on you for not having a backup plan.
Right.
Because did you really think that? Yeah, every YouTuber says it, any big YouTuber says it. Like, there's always going to be a day. Like, there's never a day you're not worried that this won't go away. So you have to have a
Right.
plan B. Even the biggest streamers and YouTubers have a plan B. They've talked about it. So if
Right.
you're someone on TikTok, an app where you post short form content and thinking that your career is going to have this crazy longevity, that's a little crazy
Well, I also think, and
when you
this is
really
the
break it down.
influence, a perfect example of the influence of ByteDance on TikTok. They have all these people convinced you're going away. If we leave, you have no option. If they shut down TikTok, you can't go anywhere. And these young people, rather than saying, well, wait a minute, what is this bill? What are they talking about? And yeah, there is that risk. But by the way, didn't we just see 150 million US users? Well, to me, the guns to the head of ByteDance. Either there's no TikTok or you divest and allow somebody else
Right.
to come in and keep it going.
But it just
So
goes to show
basically,
you that if ByteDance does not sell, and I say this to any TikToker who makes money and this is their currency or the way they make a living, I would say that if ByteDance doesn't sell, it goes to show you that ByteDance and TikTok, probably more so ByteDance, definitely ByteDance,
right.
they don't care about you. They don't care about your career.
They're gonna let
You
the
are
whole
a
thing
pawn in
blow
their
up.
system. Yeah.
Right.
So sure, you make maybe some money, but most of the, as far as I know, and I feel like I'm 95% accurate on this, no one on TikTok is really making a solid living. The money that you make is from advertisers and sponsors and all that stuff. Those you can easily move over, and I'm talking from a business perspective here, not really from a content creator perspective, that you can pretty easily move over to wherever else you go because you have certain contracts and whatever. As long as you keep doing what you're doing on a different platform, they still have to oblige, is that the word? Oblige to those contracts. So if you have a 2-year contract with these people and then TikTok dies tomorrow, they still have to do their contract, but you still have to keep posting. So they won't care where, unless it says in the clause, oh, TikTok, you have to post to TikTok. Most of the big, I would argue all of the big TikTokers, the ones that are actually making money off advertisements and stuff, they already have other social media platforms to use. So
Right.
I don't, even for the big ones, like the really big ones, it's not going to affect them that much. This is really going to hurt the people in the middle who
Yeah.
aren't like, my question to them would be like, what's considered a living, right? Is it enough for groceries, or how are you paying for stuff? Because I know you're not making rent, the average rent in America, in New York City, off TikTok, right? But again, I would love to see if I'm wrong on that. Maybe maybe the middleman TikToker, the one with the couple.
Honestly, I mean, this is why we've been craving this type of legislation for at least 10 years now. And people like us have been saying with social media, you have to come up with some sort of regulation, or this is what happens. It explodes. You now have 150 million plus people just in the US alone using this platform, and now we have to blow it apart.
Yeah.
So for all the people that don't touch it, don't do anything, don't. Well, here we are. And the same thing is going to happen with a Facebook. Something's going to blow up, and all the people that rely on it. And you know what? It's America. I don't care if you do it for pocket change or if you do
Yeah.
it as a full-time living. You're legally entitled to pursue your happiness, and if that's what you want to do, fine. But it's a wake-up call to your point. These sites come and go, and it comes politically, and that's really not how it should be, frankly. We should regulate it, or we should have some sort of guardrails. Whatever the people want should be put out there, and it shouldn't be,
But then we get to the
nobody
next
should regulate
but
it.
then we get to the next gray line, which is we need regulations, we need guardians, we need whatever. But how do we do that without limiting the freedoms of what people can
So
do?
that's why I'm okay with a bill like this, which is the bare minimum.
Hmm.
How about we don't have any foreign adversaries being the main investor in it?
That's it. Yeah, that's all you have to do. We don't need this is where the bill gets scary, because is it we're divesting, or is it America wants to take control of what we're pushing? Right? And that's just as scary as China owning it, in my opinion. Maybe not as scary, but like I don't like the idea of government owning it and having a say in it.
No, our government should not own it.
Yeah.
It should be individual, private and I don't know if the government can, based on the ruling that's going to
Right.
come from
But
the
this is
Supreme Court as
again,
well.
this is where it
We're
gets
not even
dicey, Mom.
talking to social media anymore.
Right, but
Okay?
this is where it gets dicey in the sense of, okay, maybe I'm not government that owns it, but some of my friends, so I'm an investor and some of my really close friends are politicians, right? That's where you get into that gray area where it gets
Yes,
scary. Yeah.
but that is scary, but I'm okay with that versus a foreign adversary.
Fair. And that's the argument for like a Facebook or an Instagram, and even Twitter. I would even throw Twitter in there just to be
It's
fair.
real problems with Mark Zuckerberg and the things that he did in our last election. People have said they were crimes. He's an American citizen. Okay? We should have rules and regulations, but you can edit that out if you want to. But having said that, at least he's an American citizen and he falls under our jurisdictions.
Yeah.
Technically, he's supposed to fall under our laws, whether we choose to enforce those laws or not. But let's start with the basics. I don't want Russia influencing our youth. I don't want China influencing our youth. And I don't believe in a ban on TikTok, but if they're willing to handle the basics, and it's not just TikTok. If this goes through for TikTok, other social media platforms should be nervous.
Yeah.
Rightly so.
I don't know if I think this is I think they'll be nervous in the sense of, oh, we got to see how many Chinese investors we have, and then we have to like figure out what to do. Like I think you're going to see a lot of, to your point, what this is going to change is foreign investments. That's really
Well,
that's really the
especially
big
when
thing.
they lie, when our regulators ask for information and they
Yeah.
lie 3 times about it.
Yeah, with TikTok specifically, as I said, it's kind of tough to completely prove it for a Facebook or Instagram because we know, as I said, we know that there's Chinese influence, but we just don't exactly know what the influence is. Whereas with TikTok, it's pretty laid out. You already did your 3 strikes, so this is
Well, I'll say it again. It's currently going through the court system, and the social media platforms are being called out,
yeah,
especially in light of the COVID situation. They censored, and these are American companies, censored individuals that our federal government is now weighing in on and saying because of what they're seeing, our federal government has no right to even talk to social media platforms.
right.
They're not allowed to do that anymore. Are they still doing it? Maybe, but at least now there's a law in the books that say you're not allowed to do that.
Well, fortunately, people in their 20s are already starting to get rid of it. So this is the Wall Street Journal. This is basically, my only problem with this article is they make these people kind of seem like almost like drug addicts, in the sense of I was so addicted to TikTok that I couldn't stop, like that kind of thing. But it is kind of true. Like I was thinking about, so this article basically talks about the 25 and up category that we talked about, and how these guys were starting to, guys and girls, I should say, were starting to get rid of TikTok and how time consuming it was for their life. And I believe that this kind of goes to, this is like a 3-pronged hit, right? It goes to the ADHD that the average kid has in America now, and how it's basically attacked by the short-term or short-form content, the 1-minute video or 30-second video, and how easy it is to scroll.
Right.
So a lot of these accounts, and we won't go through every single one, obviously. Excuse me.
Well, one of them was interesting. I just want to say this because everybody can relate to this. It's not even about the time with the ADHD and blah, blah, blah. She was sitting with the table with somebody and was talking about something she saw. And because of the volume, what she has, they were sitting there in silence for a few minutes while she's scrolling through trying to find what she wanted to show the person.
Yeah.
How many times have we all done that? There's just so much volume of information that when you do see something of value and you want to share it, it takes forever to find it
Yeah.
sometimes.
So, yeah, it just kind of goes to show like how easy TikTok is to get lost. Because there was the other guy that was like, I can't even get through a movie anymore without picking up my phone and scrolling. So,
Right.
to their point, because it's so easy, and I don't think TikTok's much better than Instagram Reels or whatever. I actually use Reels more because Reels are more funnier, in my opinion. But it's kind of like if there's an attack on the US, I think it's there right there. Like in the sense of let's kill the attention span because we know everyone has ADHD and are on some kind of medication. Like
Not everybody. You can't generalize like
well, it's
that.
It's like what's the percentage of kids on
There was a
depressants or whatever?
30% number years ago, but I don't know. And we don't even know if that's misdiagnosed. We have no idea. There's a whole industry that nobody knows about in our public school system where pharmacies are right in these schools and they're dispensing this stuff. It's out of control. It's just out of control.
Vital component of healthcare. I'm trying to see because I used to think that like it was like 50% of people, diabetes adults, are on some kind of medication for something, but that might just be overall. But yeah, you're right. I guess I shouldn't generalize, but I still have to believe it's pretty high. I feel like everyone I know is on some kind of ADD medicine or should be.
Well, to some extent, the social media aspect has self-imposed, and computers in general. We've had what you call artificial ADD or ADHD, where people's brains are no longer able to, younger generations. It's interesting, though, that these 20-somethings that are saying goodbye, they're seeing how it's getting in the way of sleep, work,
How it affects them,
household chores, and relationships. The use exploded during the pandemic, where they had 1 billion monthly users by the fall of 2021.
Right.
That might have been worldwide. And that's where I got my stats about the number of U.S. adults 24 and under are 54.4 million per month. But when you read these individual stories, and based on what you were saying, Chris, I didn't pull that article up, but I had sent to you guys, I think last week. Fascinating article on ways to train your brain to be better thinkers, just basically how to concentrate. And it all goes back to, pre-computer times. That's all people were able to do. You focused on a task.
Yeah.
And the irony is individuals that were not, quote unquote, not intelligent by today's standards were far more, use their brain far more, have more greater capacity than all these educated individuals today's standards, because they were forced to do one task all day. So their brain laser focused on what that task was. And part of that training that I sent to you guys, it really was interesting for everybody, myself included, to shut things off. Do one task, do it to completion, and add an extra 5 minutes every day, 10 minutes. I mean, that's just murder for
It's
young
tough
children.
when you have 3 monitors, Mom. It's tough when I have a workstation here.
That's the point. Yeah. And people have been deluding themselves saying, well, because I have 3 monitors and I'm multitasking, I am using my brain at such a high level. Whereas the reality is the opposite's going on. Okay? So for all these individuals they're wising up. They're not getting their work done because they're too busy with all these little clips. Right. They're not sleeping because they're thinking about the clips. They can't even watch a movie. They can't even get through one task because they're thinking about these multiple other little tasks. And don't kid yourself. Our adversaries see that as a benefit to them long term,
or our weakness, I should say. So yeah, like for me personally, I can put it down pretty easily. Like if I'm someone that tries to get kind of away from his phone as much as possible. Usually I'm not even, unless it's like work related in the sense of either posting or something. I really don't use social media. Most of the stuff I watch is on my computer anyway. But right. And that's my multitasking, or my version of multitasking, is I'll have a podcast on while I'm working on something, but I'm not someone that could do 2 projects at the same time.
But this is also related to your work. For somebody who's an accountant, they don't need to be on TikTok.
Exactly. Yeah. So, but even then, I'm never, sometimes when the only time I'll really use my phone for social media is when I'm streaming in between the low periods because I can post memes in the Discord for people
Right.
who are watching. But besides that, there's really no time where I'm on TikTok throughout the day. But I definitely am a component or a proponent of someone who, if I can't sleep or like if I'm going to bed, I might start checking stuff. And it really depends on how tired I am. But
Right.
yeah, that's pretty much the only time I'll use TikTok or Instagram or whatever. Just go through my
Mhm.
stuff, see what people sent me. So usually I go through all my messages before I start streaming and then kind of before bed. And then sometimes that does go off on a little bit of a scrolling tangent. But besides
Well,
that, it's pretty easy for me to put it away.
I think initially people looked at it like, well, it's not robbing me of a lot of time. It's just a 2-second clip here, there.
That's
But
yeah,
those
that's where it catches you. I was
right,
yeah.
they start adding up, and now we have an entire generation that can't stop looking at those 2-second clips. So now their world is, "I'll do my life when I'm not on my
Right.
phone." Where it used to be, you have to do your when your life's not busy, that's when you do your phone or whatever, that's just the
Yeah.
example
I,
of it.
I bet you if you were to look at like I mean, obviously you have screen time on your phone, but I think if you told someone the average number of videos they watch on TikTok, it's going to be so much higher than what they think. They'll probably be like, oh,
Right.
I might watch 100. It's probably like 400. Like you don't realize how fast you scroll through those.
Grandma and I were at Steck's the other day
Yeah.
getting lunch. A gentleman standing there, and we're waiting, and I'm not obviously not on my phone with grandma there. And he turns to us, he's an older guy, probably my age, turns to us and he says, "Did you ever think you'd see the day where people can't even stand at a deli without having their phone out?" Every other person there had their phone out.
Really?
It's, Stacks when you're waiting for a
Yeah.
sandwich. And it's just this guy and us. He's a farmer, okay? And an older guy. And he's like, making comments about it. And meanwhile, I said, well, some of these people are on their lunch hour and, they're waiting for their sandwich and they're just killing time. But, I didn't go too in depth. And meanwhile, I'm thinking, thank God I didn't have my phone out.
Yeah, that guy would. Yeah.
What is wrong with you people? But, for us old people who look around and see it, you know it from restaurants. It's appalling when you see everybody sitting
It's on
there
your phone. Yeah.
waiting for their food on their phone. Okay, they're out to dinner. That's a good thing. They're not all in their house. But, it's when do you put it down? When
My
is enough
I
enough?
my favorite is the videos where people are in a movie theater and they'll have their phone out. I'm like, you paid for this movie and you're on your phone. You could have done that at home, right? Like that's ridiculous to me. But
Yeah,
it kind of goes to show you, like that's not a TikTok issue. That's just
right.
that's just
Cultural.
yeah, that's
Yeah.
just the thing here. So it's. I think that there is more negative than positive to social media in the end from a perspective of I'm just scrolling, not as a content creator, but just as like someone that uses social media. There's really no benefit. As I said, I don't use Facebook really, actually really at all. Instagram Reels is the only thing I use. I don't even post to Instagram anymore. And then TikTok, I post pretty much every day. Obviously, YouTube's my main thing, but
I still go back to these schools that started banning phones, and the kids all had a fit at first. After a few days, they were loving it. They were talking more at lunch. They were getting more out of school, etc., etc. The ones that kept pushing it were the damn parents because they have to be able to reach their kids.
yeah.
You know what? You don't have to reach your kids. My parents didn't reach me 24/7,
Yeah,
and that was
the argument to that though is the just in case like school shooting, if diabetic problem or whatever. Like there's some things that, but again, we're talking odds, which is a different topic. Like what are the odds that's ever going to happen? I know we make it sound like mass shootings happen every day, but realistically, it's well, I don't even want to say it that way, but like we were talking about this recently. The amount of shootings versus car accidents, like the difference is pretty astronomical. Like you're
oh
playing
yeah,
on and think of how often you get in car crashes. So
yes.
when you put it in that perspective, it's like, oh, okay, well, that's yeah. Anyway, so I kind of understand the argument of having a phone on you at all times, especially in an emergency. But if there's an emergency, kids should not have it in their pockets all day. You should have it in a backpack that's by you at all times, right?
Right. I don't understand why, if you can't, and kids are kids, they can't control stuff. That's their nature.
Right.
Their brain is not fully developed. They need guardrails, they need parameters. And something, here's another one I saw, shocking story out of Germany. And it is shocking in the sense that they're not allowing kids to have water during class, during Ramadan, because 3 out of the 27 kids are not allowed to have it
Water?
because of Ramadan. Water. Yes, you're not allowed food, water during sun while the sun is up during Ramadan.
Oh wow, you're not
Okay?
even allowed water. I thought it was I
Nope.
thought it was just food.
Nope.
Oh wow.
No, you're not allowed to take anything in. And that's specifically for Muslims and during Ramadan. And it's during a period of time, and it's supposedly like 14 and older. And this was in elementary school. But so I'm reading this article, and yeah, I mean, that's wrong. It's just because 3 kids have a particular religious blah, blah, blah. But meanwhile, I'm going, do you think I was ever allowed to pull out a water bottle when we were in school all day?
Oh really?
That was absolutely, you didn't drink or eat.
Oh really? I didn't. Oh yeah, maybe definitely not eat. Like you can't eat in class.
Schools too. You weren't even allowed to stick a gum. But in gum was more because kids
Yeah,
use it. But
yeah, didn't the nuns used to hit you back then too? So
no, it was not allowed in public
right.
schools. You think my mother in public school was allowed to bring water to class? You're out of your mind. And that had nothing to do with religion. You're just focused on school. Little kids could be dying of dehydration, and they didn't care. You're in class right now. At best, you had the water fountain if you got to
Right.
it in time before the other kids in between classes. So
Yeah,
part of
I
me
don't
is like,
remember
what
if
these little darlings have to have water all day?
I don't remember if that was the same for me. I don't remember if I was allowed water in maybe not in grade school. I don't maybe not, but in high school you were allowed water bottles, like if you had one.
Okay. Well,
Yeah.
it would be wrong if we're now going to allow this stuff because the little darlings have to have water all day.
Mom, you
Fine.
sound like a psychopath. How dare you drink water
You
in
know
my
what?
classroom?
It's discipline, okay? It's discipline. You don't if a entire generations before them for how many years managed to make it through a school day without having to chug water. I'm really
Right.
shocked that children today are so dehydrated that they have to have it. Maybe it's a nervous thing. I'm not saying water's a bad thing, assuming it's just water. Who knows what these kids are drinking in class? Who's going through their water bottles?
That is true.
Having said that, no, you shouldn't deprive kids. It's not like we don't allow other kids to have a ham sandwich during Lent in the cafeteria. So why all of a sudden should 24 other kids have to suffer because 3 kids have a particular religious request?
Yeah.
All right, I get that. But back to what we're saying. All of a sudden it's now required. I went through that baloney when you guys were younger. Oh, they're going to get so much information from the cows, right? The computers on wheels. They could go visit libraries. They could see things that you can't see in a textbook. It's going to be wonderful. Okay, that was like 5 minutes. After that, it was kids gaming,
And
kids
then
watching.
your son figured out, oh, I can turn this into a gaming laptop.
I don't just mean you. I'm just saying in general, they were so naive, and I think the school system still is naive.
Yeah.
And we're back to now everybody has to have a phone, and now the parents are complaining. Well,
Yeah,
you know what?
Yeah, but I think that's kind of the difference between, and I was a proponent of obviously a gamer in high school during class, but it's like that kind of separates the strong from the weak, right? That's kind of like the school version of natural selection in the sense of the kids that aren't gamers are the ones that are going to do well, more likely. We're talking based like chances, right? So I think that if a kid can navigate, hey, I should probably not be playing games. I should probably pay attention in class. That's on the student. That's a student by student. I can't blame the school for wanting the best for the kids and us figuring out how to game, right?
Well, I blame the schools for bringing the goddamn computers in the classroom
Right,
because
but
it turned out to be a giant farce. They're not doing educational stuff, or the ones that are very few, and you've made it very challenging because no, high school kids do not have the mental discipline to continue and say, oh, I'm going to shut this off now because I really want to hear this history discussion. It should not have been allowed, and it should have been controlled from day one. And now it's out of control. And remember, Chris, you were in a somewhat controlled school environment. Public schools, it's anything goes.
yeah.
You have no idea. I know from your cousin, the stuff that would go on during class time with phones going off, kids sitting with their beats on in a public school environment, trying to learn things. And God forbid you take a phone away. Who's helping those kids? Nobody.
Yeah.
And now it's culturally you can't take it away. Well, then your kids are going to be stupid.
Mother, do you think this is kind of a interesting, nothing to really do with this, but do you think that there should be more public schools in areas? And what I mean by that is, do you think that people care less because, or like teachers care less about the students because there's just so many in public schools? Like, do you think maybe you should have like multiple public schools in a district just to kind of separate like a class of 1,000.
Should you have a class
So
of 1,000? Is
no,
there?
what I'm saying is like think of I'm trying to think of which the biggest school by us is. I guess it's Ridge. Ridge has a class of like 500, right? Like
Okay,
one class is
smaller-
500.
Okay, this it's a gradual thing. So the ideal situation for very young children is a low teacher to student ratio.
Mhm.
Because the theory is, and this is taking out learning issues and everything out of the
Yeah.
classroom. So your basic scenario, when you look for a school for your children, you always want that low ratio, 2 to 1, 3 to 1. Usually it's like 10 to 1. Okay, that's phenomenal. 20 to 1 is perfectly fine. A phenomenal teacher could do 30 to 1, but when you don't know the teacher, you don't know the school, you want to look for a low ratio.
Right.
As kids get older, you can increase that ratio, but keeping in mind, you're increasing it with the idea that these kids are learning a certain level of discipline. That's why when you get to college and you're a freshman, for instance, you're in a big school, you could be in a class with 200 people. That's because the burden is now put on the individual student as an adult who's paying a huge amount of money, in theory, out of their own pocket. You're motivated enough to maximize what that teacher's saying, and that teacher doesn't need to hold your hand anymore and report back to mom and dad because
Right.
you're legally an adult in that room. You're building towards that. And if you remember in high school, in your particular situation, that's what teacher would say. When you're in college, you're not going to get away with this. Like it's always been,
Which is very wrong.
training,
Yeah.
well, we're training you in the educational system. The public school system, in my opinion, has got, and this is not necessarily a reflection on the many, many good, phenomenal teachers out there who are also being thwarted by the very system that they're forced to maintain of, they're dumping more kids in, they're dumbing down what they need to know, they're letting the standards go down, and I'm generalizing, but that's basically what's happening.
Right.
And you're getting many, many teachers who are mailing it in. They're not teaching like they're able to because they're not getting the support that they need from home, right?
Right.
From the school. You guys were spoiled because you were in an environment where, for the most part, parents were engaged in the education. It's not about the school. You need the parents engaged as well. And now the schools are going out of their way to take the parents out of it. And that's where you're seeing kids struggle. If you don't have the support at home that you need, and I'm not saying support like, help me do this paper or whatever.
Right.
It's parents saying, hey, listen, your teacher is in charge. You keep your mouth closed, you behave. Or if you don't like what you're saying, you respectfully respond. Like the parents have the schools back, but in the past, the schools had the parents back, right?
Right.
Help us work with your kid. We want to educate your kid. So much of that has eroded in the public school system. Now we're at the point where they are legally taking your kid away if you don't agree with what they want your kid to agree to, whether it's educational or, obviously it's more ideology based. And while they're pushing all this ideology crap, in my opinion, education's gone down the tubes.
Yeah.
So anything goes. Talk to a kid who's been to public school. I don't care what school you pick. When you compare it to what it was 30 or 40 years ago in that same public school, people's heads would spin.
Yeah.
And they wonder why people are coming out of these schools depressed, lacking in education, don't know the basics, may not go to college, which is not necessarily a bad thing, but they have no means of getting a job or holding a job or the attention span to keep a job.
Right. All right. We just spent a long time on that. So
Yeah.
let's move on because there's a couple other things. I guess we'll start with speaking of, I guess, education. Maybe you don't even need an education, Mom, because now we're at the point where we have our first AI software engineer, Devin. Did you see this?
Oh,
Did you hear
geez,
about
no.
this? So the one thing that when AI came out, we won't spend too much time on this, but the one thing that we all kind of said when AI came out was like, oh, well, it can't take the job of the people that actually make these AIs. And now this AI comes out called Devin that can write and create code using a single prompt. So it's not quite ready yet in the sense of it can still do a lot. It's I saw a woman who's a software engineer kind of explain it, and she said it's a tool that really helps me a lot. Like clearly, workflow will be much better for the next couple of years.
Mm-hmm.
But after a couple of years,
Yeah,
we're
you're
done.
out of a
Yeah,
job.
she's like, let me see how well I can do in 5 years, and then this thing's gonna come in and basically do all the work. So
Yeah.
I think it is. We're getting to the point, and we say this every time we talk about AI. We're getting to the point where jobs are going to be useless pretty soon. Like you won't need a job because there's going to be some AI doing it, which means a lot of new entrepreneurs. But
No, it doesn't mean you won't need a job. It means you won't have a
a job.
job.
Well, then I'm going to code a robot to work for the family. You know, so I don't have to work. My robot pet's going to work.
Yeah, I know, but still, that's not how society functions.
Yeah,
I don't
I
know
know. I'm
what we
kidding.
all have robots that we send to go do jobs and they get paid.
Yeah, and then they provide for the family, mom.
Yeah. Well, it's a disaster on many levels, and I just don't, again, okay, Chris, an AI person's going to do your job. What are you going to do all day?
Yeah, Netflix, mom. Netflix, make YouTube videos.
Okay, that's my point.
Yeah,
That
it's not a
there's no
life.
it's not a life. There's no quality of life there. People need to be we're still humans, but we're animals. We need to be stimulated. We need to be challenged. And you know, no, we don't need any more couch potatoes just sitting in front of streaming apps all day long.
Yeah.
That's not a life.
I would say that a robot babysitter would be pretty nice.
Yeah, I suppose. I mean,
Mom and dad both
I don't
work because the economy's
problem.
crashed. Yeah.
Right. I mean, that's where you're like, okay, how do we juggle this? The George Jetsons, they had the maid Rosie. She
Yeah.
was but the Jetsons were still humans. Um, for people that like to throw out, oh, we won't need jobs someday. There's nothing wrong with a job. There's nothing wrong with a reason to get up and do something and get paid
To do it.
equally and
Yeah.
handsomely for it to do it. Yeah. But if you're gonna have robots, dude, okay, I'm just trying to figure out what are you doing with the rest of your time?
As someone who, as a family that has a lot of people that have retired, most of us were bored for a week and then we went back to work.
Yeah,
Like,
yeah.
so
And
to your
so many
point,
retirees have said I would not have lived as long as I did if I didn't keep working.
yeah. So, yeah, there's definitely like as much as people might hate their jobs, there's still, and again, I understand that there's people that are in jobs that they absolutely despise but have to do. I think when you get out of that job and then you sit on your butt for a month and enjoy finally a rest, obviously you deserve a break. But like you're gonna say, man, I really wish I could do something right now.
Well, no, European countries think we're crazy because they shut down for a month in the summer.
Yeah,
They
which
just
is
they
yeah,
think they're worse. We don't take 4 weeks off, but yet they haven't always had the same GDP. I mean, everything's shut to hell now, but
mm,
that's the American way. We had to build our country from the beginning, and you were looked as it used to be a negative stigma to not be a worker.
yeah. Well, I know in Poland, when someone was telling me that on Sundays there's nothing's open. So Sunday is like a rest day for everyone. And I don't know, again, I don't know Poland's economy and how well that works for them, but it seems like one day off a week's not bad. A full month, okay, now we're
No,
doing something weird.
well, where does that come from, right?
Sabbath day, right? The holy
Right,
day. Yeah.
it's keeping one day, which is the commandment, and Poland is a very religious country. Um, the more we've taken religion out of our country, the more workers have gotten screwed.
Yeah.
Okay. Now nobody wants any religious holidays. Okay. You can't, everyone wants religion out of the office place. Okay, that's fine. But 99% of our holidays are based on a religion,
On a religion of
Judeo-Christian
some,
religion.
yeah.
Yeah. Including New Year's Eve. I love all these people who say, oh, but they want off for New Year's Eve. Why? That's a
Yeah.
religious holiday, New Year's Eve. First day of the year, why do you need the day off? Just go to work. So that's what I'm saying. If we didn't have those sweet spots, it would be a grudge. We'd be like, serfs.
Yeah.
But you work for things. You work to provide for family, but if you do well, you work to take a vacation. You work to, if you get a lot of time off, it's like everything else. You get spoiled and now you don't enjoy those things when you get them because oh, I need my month. I got to take my month. Doesn't matter what's going on in the office. You just, they just shut down and do it. There's nothing wrong with having a day off. We have that in Bergen County. All the stores are closed on Sundays in northern
Oh,
Jersey.
really?
Yeah, it's called the Blue Laws. So you can't open up. There might be some exceptions, um, but you know what? That was always the case when I was younger because moms didn't work.
Yeah. Right.
So mom could go to the store Monday through Saturday. It
Problem is the
wasn't a big
economy is
deal.
so bad now that you can't really do that. It's not viable.
Not only that, everything's online. You
Yeah.
don't have to go to stores anymore. You can
Right.
do everything online. So everything is changing, but there's a lot to be said. I was saying to somebody recently, on Saturdays, your dad did yard work. On Sunday, you went to a church or synagogue or temple, whatever. That was the rhythm of the suburban and the city life. That's what you did.
Yeah.
That was more common than what you see nowadays.
Yeah. So again, it's only a matter of time. It's only a matter of time before there's a robot or AI for anything. But
Yeah,
next
I'm
thing,
guessing people aren't going to go to church every day when they have the AI robot work for them.
yeah, I'm gonna send my robot to church.
Yeah.
Yeah. All right. So this is a big one that's kind of in the same space, more so the crypto space. So I don't know if you saw this, but Joe is trying to. I should be respectful. The president wants to. Yeah. I saw Valve and I thought I meant the gaming company. So they're putting a huge tax on crypto mining now, which is not
Cool.
good. So it's a 30% tax. 30% tax on crypto mining. Now, for those of you that don't know how crypto mining works, to give you the kind of the idea, the concept is basically there's these special computers that are able to kind of go into a lottery pool and they run algorithms like AI algorithms that allow you to basically pull out parts of a Bitcoin until you get one Bitcoin. It's basically the idea. So these people will buy multiple machines, aka more lottery tickets or raffle tickets,
Yeah.
if you will. And first off, it costs a lot of money just in electricity every month to run these things. I don't know what the
Yeah.
average electricity bill is, but some of these people have hundreds of computers, hundreds of these, right? So let's say, realistically, let's say you're paying. I think I'm gonna take a guess here. For 100, I'm gonna say you're probably paying 12 grand in electric every month, right? If in a facility, and then plus a 30% tax on it.
Yeah.
Like this is what happened with China, right? If you remember, I think I could talk about this now, but I mean, NDA's got to be over. But we used to have a mining company, and we still do. But it's like a lot of the people that worked with us were from China when they shut down mining over there in China because of the electric costs. They came over here, and now we're just doing the same thing. So now all the people that work with us are like, well, why am I here? So they have to hope that this doesn't pass. If this gets passed, then yeah, you're essentially killing crypto mining. So we used to mine Bitcoin. We didn't do all the other ones, but
Yeah, and I'm skeptical only because Bitcoin has been going up lately.
73,000
So
it said. 73,000
yeah,
on
so the
this.
market is kicking in again, and
Now they want to do this bill where 30% cut. It's because you're making the argument it is essentially free money, depending on the ratio of which your mining versus overhead costs meets. So
well, I'm not going to go into the specifics because I don't have none of the detail about that other than to say many of us are waiting for this commercial market crash that's supposedly coming. That's going to take down the whole economy. Not sound like doom and gloom, but I can understand why that's supposed to be coming and how we're heading that way. And the inflation in the stock market. It's totally inflated right now, the stock market. Having said that, I just don't see, and this president's wasting time on crypto. They've been dying to get their hands on crypto for I don't know how long. They want to tax it. They want a piece of it, the government. They do not like the idea of something out there being unregulated and going like crazy. Now, you can make the case for it, like we just saw with like a TikTok, for instance, with social media. You got to regulate certain things. But it's just like, they're so zero focused on that. And meanwhile, take a look around. We got other bigger issues right now.
well,
than that.
the real scary thing to me, and this is how, again, I don't want to implant this idea in some evil mastermind's head, but quantum computing is going to be within the next 10 years like a thing where the average consumer will have a version of it, of a quantum computer. Right now we have quantum computers like Elon, I know at Tesla has a quantum computer that is so fast. If you threw an AI algorithm in there that mined Bitcoin, you'd suck all the Bitcoin out in a day. You would be the wealthiest man in the world by a long shot, as long as Bitcoin doesn't like just tank. So basically you take all of it in a day, you sell before it crashes, right? So I think when you have a digital currency like that,
Mhm.
I don't think anyone expected the quantum computing to be able to do what it does. I'm trying
Right.
to, I know I'm explaining this very poorly, but we're at the point where Bitcoin can easily be taken over by one person with a quantum computer now than ever
No,
before.
I mean, there may be something to said for it's a market that needs some form of regulation.
Yes.
I'm always suspicious
Every
when
crypto
the
person just got
government
so
starts.
mad at us for saying that, by the way.
Well, I mean, it's just how do I put it? I'm not somebody who believes in total regulation. I
Yeah.
do believe in fair market and capitalism. Capitalism. I do think you should be able to trade things similar to this, but eventually we had to rein in the stock market. We had to rein in the bond market because people were doing things that were out of control.
People will
And
figure
that's
out how to manipulate it.
right. We had the in '87 we had all the trades that were being done by computers that got out of hand. So things that were not being controlled. Now we're talking quantum computing and generating these bitcoins. This it's an interesting area to me that somebody can make a product and trade a product, but not everybody has the
Ability
ability.
to do it. Yeah.
They may have the opportunity, but they don't have the ability to go in there and start creating the widget that's being traded. That's an interesting thing to me. Can anybody go in and create a fixed income bond? Well, I guess if you have the money, you can do that with somebody who can create those things, but it's not easy, but it can be
Yeah.
done.
A lot of
Can I
paperwork.
set up a quantum computer and start blah, blah, blah? To your point, eventually people will probably be able to do that. But now, what is that market then? If it's like who can
Exactly.
make
That's
the
when it
most
becomes
amount fast
zero
enough?
because, yeah. I don't know if it becomes zero or super pricey because now you could sell the Bitcoin. Like if I had all the Bitcoin and I sold it to people and I can control the price because I have the majority, like that's that would be ugly.
Right, and it doesn't help crypto people to allow anybody to go ahead and do it. They may
Yeah.
want some regulation because you gotta now the market is just,
Shot.
everybody's
Yeah.
making widgets.
But I
Right.
think, yeah,
Supply and
in the
demand.
end, I think widgets is kind of the wrong word. I was kind of confused what you meant by widget, but I think what my mom means is getting these computers and that could do an algorithm to suck things out, like suck more raffle tickets. Essentially, it's an uneven playing field.
You
So
you weren't you didn't go to business school. The widget is the classic term of making a
that's what
product.
I
The
thought
widget
you
is
meant,
the
but
product.
you got to remember our demographic here.
I know, but
Yeah,
that's the term for if you make something,
yeah,
whatever that something is, the more that you have of it, the demand tends to go down because and
right.
then the price goes down
So
for value.
to your point, there has to be some sort of regulation. I don't know what that regulation is.
Right.
Um, the only regulation I can think of is uh, everyone's allowed a certain amount of mining computers. That's really it,
Right.
right? You're only allowed a certain number of mining computers. But if you do that, everyone's going to just buy the four and then mine, and then everyone gets an equal amount of money. So you just end up splitting the pool by however many people there are. So then
Right.
there's no competition, and then the value of Bitcoin goes down. So
Right.
I don't know if it's either way. This bill that we're talking about kind of kills the whole drive to actually get crypto now, especially in
Right.
America. So they're basically trying to turn it into a trading platform rather than a mining platform. So they're
Right.
gonna buy it from other countries because they're gonna be allowed to mine when we won't. Even though you're allowed to, it's just probably not worth it
Right.
from a perspective of cost, overhead costs versus how much you're getting. Uh,
Yes.
so it's it's just a terrible ROI to return on investment.
Yeah, so supply and demand. So if people turn them out, you're gonna have a lot of coins out there, and now, depending
Yeah,
on the
it's like
market,
what's the
they're gonna
point?
start to lose their value.
Um, Before we do our last one, I just want to give a little shout out to do you
Oh
know this
yeah.
guy?
Yeah, I
Texas
saw
man who
that.
lived for 70 years in the iron lung finally passes away. You know what? I'm happy though because I'm glad that hopefully now, again, if you believe in an afterlife, he gets to live the life that he never really got to live. All right.
That's right.
He was in there from the age of 6 to 70. So for those of you that don't know the story, he's one of those guys that actually I think TikTok paid for his bills in the sense of uh the funds that he was getting from being a content creator or whoever ran his channel. I think they were paying for his medical stuff every year, but I don't quote me on that. I could be wrong, or at least it helped. But
Yeah.
he got polio, and he was one of those rare cases where he got he was paralyzed from the waist down or neck down. So he
Yeah.
had to be in the iron lung. And for those of you that don't know the iron lung, it's basically literally something that does everything
Keep
for you, if
breathing.
you will. Yeah.
Okay, keep breathing.
And He's been in there for 70 years. Can you imagine being in this thing for 70 years? I wish I had a picture of the whole
Yeah.
thing, but
Well,
unfortunately,
it was amazing because even though, I mean, look at those old pictures for him all that time, that all that he did, I think he could paint with his mouth. I mean, he could
yeah,
read, obviously. He could see things, and I don't know how he was educated, but it's just an amazing, you know, we complain about our lives, and you see somebody like that, and that's been his whole life,
whole
and
life.
tried to
Yeah.
make some sort of quality out of it with just his brain.
Yeah, I'm just like the one that gets me the most is like when his parents probably passed away, he couldn't go to a funeral or anything. Someone had to tell him, okay, you
Yeah,
can't go anywhere. So that's just, I would argue that's probably the hardest 70 years to do,
yeah.
right? Confide. Even people
Oh,
with
yeah.
huge disabilities are able to live their lives. But I'm kind of, you know what? It's almost like a bittersweet that he passed away because
Yes.
now he gets to do what he wants, hopefully. So
Yeah.
yeah, shout
And
out to
he's
I will never forget his name. What is it?
just
Texas
did
man, Paul Alexander. Yeah, I thought it was
Alexander.
Alexander, but yeah. I
Led
mean,
a full life. Isn't that amazing? He did more in that long than a lot of people. Back to what we were saying, who just sit in front of a TV all day screaming Netflix.
yeah,
I did more with his life than a lot of us. And it's amazing what he did. Yeah.
yeah. So hopefully he rests well. Hopefully he enjoys that next life.
Yep.
The only one we have left is the one that you sent me, which is where is it? Feds are coming after
Gamer?
extremist gamers.
Yeah.
So I read through this. Now we talk about this a lot because as my viewers know, Matt Sprague goes a little off the rails. Matt, if you're watching this, so I don't know what this is your article, Mom. So you can start us
Yeah.
off, and I'll give you
So
mine.
the FBI and the Department of Homeland Security, they want to root out domestic violent extremist content. They started to base some interviews. They're going to base it on some interviews that they had with Roblox, Discord, Reddit, and Anonymous, another group. Activities that include, quote, activities that violate the terms of service. By June 28th of this year, they hope to have a strategy done on bringing gaming issues online with broader agency missions. So these FBI and the government, the DHS, they have their guidelines that they feel are acceptable and not acceptable, and they want to work with these platforms to say, all right, what's acceptable? And let's look for the ones that are violating terms of service and whatnot. There's no federal law that criminalizes domestic violent extremism. I didn't realize that. But there are 5 domestic threat categories. One, I found these very interesting: racial, ethnically, not violent extremism.
Are you taking notes, Matt Sprague?
Right,
Go ahead.
motivated. Well, reason being, what does that mean? If you make an improper comment, they coming after you. Number 2, anti-government or anti-authority violent
Matt
extremism.
Sprague, go ahead. Continue.
Okay. Number 3, animal rights and environmental violation extremism.
That's an
Okay.
interesting one.
Yeah. Number 4, this one I couldn't get over this one. Abortion-related violent extremism.
Matt Sprague.
Number 5, all other kinds.
All
Okay,
other
this
kinds.
is what the
Okay.
article.
So what was
They
the point
also
of the first 4 if you're just going to say other kinds?
all other kinds.
Yeah.
Or maybe there's many others. But do you know how vague that is? And how easy it is to say that what's considered an abortion-related violent extremism that gamers are talking about, right?
Right.
And where do they think they're going to create those guardrails? They also want to crack down on the content. This has all started since January 6th, that huge extremism that we had, violence that we had. With that new legal filing, we talked about that earlier when we talked about TikTok with the Supreme Court. Governments, they're not allowed to talk to social media or to influence social media and decide
Yeah.
what they can and put out there, especially for misinformation. So now you're going to have to create, it's not misinformation if somebody says, hey, you run like a white boy. Is that considered violent extremism?
No, I know what they mean. Matt Sprague is a huge Matt Sprague's definitely on some list, Mom. I'm going to be honest.
But you know what, Chris? It's fine. But the question is, should he be?
Yeah. So if you keep reading that article, they talk about a Twitch streamer named Hassan Hassan
Yeah.
Piker. So
Yeah.
Hassan is he's one of those guys born in Canada, and then kind of brought his socialistic idea. I think he's considered a socialist, like he's super anti-capitalism and stuff. Again, I don't watch him, so I'm just going by the small clips I've seen, which are probably out of context. I will admit that. So he's one of those guys I'd love to have a conversation with, even though I'm sure we won't agree on a lot of things. But
Right.
I forget what it said. Let me just see if I can find it. I know where it is. I saw it according to I forget the way he said it, but he said something like the FBI, Department of Service and Sheriff. I wish I could. Where is it?
Yeah.
Damn it! It was basically he said that the FBI does a terrible job at stopping extremism.
Yeah.
Now, the question I would ask him though is, give me your definition of extremism, because depending on his definition, I would agree. Like if someone says something in a video game, like here's the thing about Matt Sprague, guys. This is like the real secret. Even though Matt says these crazy things, he's not gonna follow through on those. Like it's joking, it's content. That's one thing. But then I think of like the Uvalde shooter and the Sandy Hook shooter, right? Remember, they were posting on Facebook and other social media things like weeks before that they were going to do this. FBI knew about it and they didn't do anything. Then I agree with Hassan, right? Then I agree, yeah, you have to crack down on this stuff because then you have a little more evidence. You know that this guy has a gun. You know, there was pictures with the kid taking shots. Like there's certain things that they could have stopped, right? And they didn't for some reason. And that I will agree with Hassan on. So do I think that they need to crack down on it? Yes. Do I think that they have a very loose definition of extremism? Also, yes.
Keep in mind, this is the same group that has decided that Latin mass attending Catholics are violent extremists
Right.
that need to be watched. If you keep that in context, this is why I say this is baloney. They're going after, and no, this is they're putting little old ladies from January 6th in jail as violent extremists because they walked into the building. So open up your eyes, gamers. They're going to look and target specific individuals. And it's not that you're going to do anything worse than anybody else does, but now they're going to use it as an opportunity to shut down your site
Yeah.
because they decided you're a particular skin color, you're a particular possible political person, you're particular whatever, and we've decided you're like a January 6th person, and you therefore must be an extremist.
Right.
That's why you have to watch when this crap goes on. And I don't, we just learned today that the vice president's stepdaughter is now funding for a Hamas or a violent extreme group. She's trying to raise funds for that. All right, that's an in-your-face somebody who
Does
should
Kamala
probably be
Harris have a
questioned.
daughter?
She has a stepdaughter. Okay,
Gotcha.
so this was in the news. It's not being hidden. It's a specific group that she's fundraising for, a group that is violent and extreme. Okay, why is it that that person's not, and that's right in your face? So this is a load of horse crap when they feel they got to go in there. Now you and I both know, we remember seeing that game. We talked about a podcast maybe a year ago where they had people dressed as a particular religion, they were going after them, or of a particular group. Absolutely wrong. That's content that should be addressed. That's not the gamers. Those
That's
are
the
the
company.
companies that did it.
Right.
Okay.
My other question to these social medias, like they mentioned, this is where I go, Reddit is probably the only one in there that I think is actually located in America. Right. I think Roblox, Disc, like you're talking about global platforms that you're saying, hey, can you help us here? Right. Like Discord really doesn't have that much skin in the game in the sense of, as I said, I don't think that they're located in America. I believe they're Discord location, headquarters.
Listen, there are plenty of websites out there with people that just point blank will say violent extremist things.
Right, and nothing happens.
The FBI does nothing about them. Now and this is why it's bullshit. They're targeting certain individuals and they're going to use gaming, which is what? Predominantly 18 to something year old males, would you say?
Yeah. So it's this is what I mean though. Like you can't, it's lack of freedom of speech, obviously, but also I don't. First off, never mess with the gamers, as you know. It's not gonna affect us. We lived through the Modern Warfare 2 and 3 lobbies, okay? We've seen the worst of the worst. So in that regard, like, my question is, let's take statistics into example of like, or for example of like, how many extremist gamers are there and how many have actually done harm? You know, like if you base those statistics, there's no reason to go after them, right? Does
Right,
Yeah,
that's my point. A little old lady walking through the Capitol, invited in by the police, is now sitting in jail.
yeah,
Okay? They're not going to stop at, well, I didn't do anything violent. It doesn't matter. You violated by saying a particular comment. Oh, and by the way, you voted for a particular candidate and we don't like that. Or you give to a certain party or you belong to a certain group. That's how they get their foot in the door. And
right,
that's why I have a problem with this, especially when I don't need special ops going in there looking after or special services. We have things that are in your face that they don't investigate. So I do believe with what do you say his name, Mrs. Sun? I do believe with that concept of why don't you go with the low hanging fruit first before you start deep diving? Because they're not deep diving for violent extremism. You can find it. You probably see it more than anybody just by going onto some of these sites. You see who the nut jobs are. You
yeah,
don't need a special task force for it. No, they're going to use it because they want to deep dive into other areas that have nothing to do with violent extremism, but it has to do with what they deem inappropriate.
no.
That's why I hope you gamers stand up and fight it. I really do.
Listen, there's more gamers than there are military. Right?
Yeah.
So, yeah, it's that's an I don't know. I get, again, to your point, I don't want them involved, but also I would say, why are you getting involved? Because there's not enough things that us gamers have done to really affect anything anyway. So, yeah, you're
Which
right.
is why you all have to pause for a minute and say, okay, then there must be something else going on here.
Yeah,
That's what concerns me, especially when we're seeing letters, with our government talking about what they deem violent extremism. People going to a Latin mass. They tried to infiltrate churches. The FBI tried to get people to rat on other people in the pews. That's purely, targeting a particular group that they deem politically not helpful.
right.
There's no violent extremisms. Sure, you get an occasional nut job from all walks of life who shoot up places, right?
Yeah, yeah. Again, I don't know why you target the gamers
Yeah.
in the end.
Well, look at you mentioned the school that wasn't Uvalde, it was the other one.
Sandy, yeah,
Mm,
Sandy.
no. The one in Texas, the
Uvalde.
LGBT no, the LGBTQ girl that shot up the school, killed 6-year-old. It was a
Oh, I
Christian
thought you said
school.
I mentioned. Oh, I don't.
No, well, you mentioned it, but in Texas, okay? So is the FBI now going after and infiltrating every LGBTQ website
Good
looking
point.
for violent extremists?
Yeah, yeah. Good point.
If not, why are you going after gamers? There's literally somebody there
Yeah,
who
well, I
isn't
think the
hiding.
argument though for the gamer ones would be, hey, these guys are playing violent video games, and they try and correlate the two, but there's never any correlation. They've done that study so many times. I don't know why they still run with it. So
I don't
I
know.
think
Have
that,
there been
yeah.
studies on the violence in LGBTQ? Because there's a huge amount of domestic violence in the
Yeah.
lesbian communities.
So I just learned this recently. Did you know like 86% of domestic violence calls are lesbian couples?
Yes.
I
Yes.
was like, holy shit, that's so high.
Right. So, and I'm not saying that they're a problem. I don't want to be guilty to
Highest
the same.
divorce rate too.
You're picking out. Uh, Go for the low hanging fruit. We had a shooter. They tried so hard to, and still
Cover
try
it,
to
yeah.
hide their manifesto, so you don't see what's in there. But we do know she was I think she was transgender, or maybe she's lesbian, but whatever. She was representing LGBTQ. Based on what you're saying, that's a low hanging fruit. Maybe you should be targeting every
Those,
one of
yeah.
those websites before you go after gamers. God forbid you do that. Well, we don't want them because they're politically on the other side. That's why I'm saying you need to be careful. When they do these things, you have to pause and say, you're picking out a particular group. Well, who are the group that does this the most?
Yeah. Huh. So, yeah, I don't know. Again, I just can't see Discord and all these companies kind of siding with the US on this one. Like, I don't think they have much of an interest.
I don't know what the incentive is for them other than to say at least we can control it if we actively get involved.
Yeah.
So, in other words, you either help us or we'll make you do it.
Yeah. Again, and we'll never know the behind the scenes on that one, but all right.
Yeah, because it certainly isn't going to help them to go after, some of their gamers. Now, you want to help. If there was a legitimate problem, I'm sure many of these sites, they don't want the ramifications of, oh, this person shut up a school and he had just been on Discord. Nobody wants something like that.
Right.
So there's incentive for that. But at the end of the day, I just say, you know what? We're not fools here. You're picking, games are violent, they're extreme. Fine. Okay. But meanwhile, we literally have violent people of other groups. Are you going after those sites?
Right. Yeah, but interesting, very interesting. But Mom, we just did an hour and a half at least. So we'll end it there just because we got stuff we got to do. We got St. Patrick's Day today. So I'm going to go celebrate with those guys. Plus I have to go run some errands. So hopefully I will see you sometime. Well, I'll definitely talk to you. I don't know. Again, I'm still trying to get Dave to do the podcast, but he always ends up being too busy. I'm like, damn it, Dave, clear your schedule. So maybe we'll see you next week. The only things I have to promote is the podcast from last week, all the social media stuff. I think I put out, what video did I put out? A zombies video on Thursday, so go check that out. And then just this podcast comes out on Monday and Tuesday on Spotify. I will see you guys at stream, and you'll see Mom whenever. So you have a good one, Mom. And we will see you soon. Bye.
Yep. Just keep in mind, beginning of April, that first weekend, I can't podcast.
Oh, okay. So we'll figure out a schedule.
Because I'll be on mic. So if you want to put Dave in then, if he's free, or
okay. Wait. Give me a date on that. Give me a date. That was the
April, the first Saturday of April.
Okay, first Saturday of April. So we're still recording. So oh yeah, we're still recording in the sense. Yeah. So it's fine. So we'll see you guys whenever, and then we'll get Dave on hopefully for that weekend. So all right, bye guys.